Scribble notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me, with or without a degree. Don't question my intensity, bravery. Similar to agencies that want to see you fold. So just pray for me. Einstein with my energy.
Welcome to the Scribbled Notes podcast. I am so excited to speak to you. How have you been? What has your life been like? I feel like it's been forever since we talked.
I am great. It has been a while. Let's see, this last 2 years has been pretty wild. I actually just started a new job. I was recently engaged, so definitely.
Hey, congratulations.
It's been a lot. Yeah, I can't complain. Yeah.
Awesome. Why don't you introduce yourself for the listeners? Let them know who you are.
All right. My name is PT Tran. I have a blog site / social media. I'm on social media, fashion therapy. You can describe me of fashion therapy. I started this website since in 2014, and I started as a fashion blog because my natural love was for fashion, like whatever. I don't know. You for me, it's always like a therapeutic tool for me, especially when I'm stressed or anything. I feel like I can, because I'm such a creative person. I feel if I can put outfits together. So basically, it started as a fashion blog, but over time, it kind of grew into how my life is now. Like, how do I incorporate more things in life? So I incorporate a lot of lifestyle, a lot of about what does it mean of being empowered, especially being Asian, international. How does that work? How does that look like in my life with everything going on? So I feel that it's good to talk about it, and I feel that for me, I'm at a place where I'm always continue to rediscover myself, and I want at least use my platform as a way to spread positivity while still express and do things that I love through how I feel when I put together clothing or help someone do a makeover. So
Yeah, and it's so cool because like we met at Nordstrom when we both worked there for a while, and like that fashion side, putting together outfits, learning how to interact with people. I think for me, it was a really cool experience because you really do get to interact with folks every day. I think customer service is very underrated in our world now because so much of what we do is on social media, but like customer service is literally learning to speak to people, learning to address people's needs, learning to kind of help people as they're going through. And Nordstrom was a cool place because you're literally helping people sometimes redesign their entire wardrobe, other times just look better than how they actually dress, which is always really cool. So it's cool to see that you're doing so much more than just even the fashion side and taking on new ventures and expanding, because there are so many things to your identity and to who you are that feeds into what you're doing now, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I would say like on my path where I started so I became a stylist when I was like 5 years old. That started with my mom dressing me up and like taking pictures. And then she used to like make. We didn't really have a lot of money, so she either go to Salvation Army or something put together, and she made a dress for me. And that's how I kind of evolved through the way of whatever the dress or specific color. It's the most important thing is feeling good what you're wearing. And I realized like going back to working at Nordstrom, it's not about the clothes you wear, but it's how you really connect with customers. What is that they need? Like, is it something that they want to fix their lifestyle? But don't change them who they are. But how are you gonna fit that into with their lives too. So I agree. Customer service is definitely people don't care about that, but customer service is the key. That's how you're gonna relate, get to know people. So that's how. And for me, I'm always a people person. So whenever someone reach out for me to help them pick a, I don't know, you ask me sometime too when I'm working at Nordstrom, like what should I wear? What should I like? How should I pair the shirt, the pants? So when it comes to that, it comes really natural for me. And then being able to partner and like for me, I don't tend to take over like when I like on a mission to do makeover. It's just more like as a partnership, right? I take all the information you give me, and then we'll work together, and then we find a particular look. Yeah, and I think it's for me like style and fashion. It's about the feel good, or like what, and then also fashion also a way that you define your identity. What is that? And I feel sometimes fashion is always constantly revolving, so your styles always can change, or colors that you wear too. So
yeah, there's so much that goes into it because your identity is like so much of identity is attached to what you wear. I know talking like just DMing you like another piece of social media, right? As part of your identity that's attached to social media. I think it's so cool. I think it's cool. It's weird. I think cool and weird can be in the same sentence. I think it's cool that social media allows you to like connect with people, show off a certain side of yourself, present yourself a certain way, help you with branding, and like that's really what it is. But then it's also weird because people almost associate your brand and all these other pieces to you, like just all the time, even offline. So what's been your experience with social media? How do you manage it?
For me, definitely. For me, I had to for social media. I separate it when it comes to fashion and like I have two social media accounts. One for my private for like posting personal life, and also posting my content, fashion, lifestyle, positive inspiration. But for me, actually, what like I would say a good. I'll tell you a good example. A couple of years ago, where social media. Sometimes I do say like it's great. You want to connect with people and network, and then also you always want to figure out how to involve your brand. And for me, I think it's more a good thing to keep up with like continue posting what you do, or like remember what is your purpose, what is that you putting out there, but also don't lose yourself because it's competitive, right? Everybody, and then so sometimes for me, I have to remind myself that sure I only have maybe 1,400 followers versus like 15, like 100. I don't have that, but keep in mind like numbers does get you ahead, but at the end of the day, I if whenever I'm stressed or I feel like I'm not getting so much like, I tend to it's good to step away, take a pause, and then try to not get too obsessed over social media because then at the end it's gonna get very unhealthy. So there's always a balance. For me, the main thing right now, objective for me is putting content out there that's positive for me, connecting with people who I haven't met or like friends that I haven't seen like 10 plus years. So that's what, and it's a tool for you to, it's an educational tool too. So like there's a lot of people, influencer that if I want to build a particular skill, I can actually reach out to them. So it's just like an easier tool to reach out to individual. So.
Yeah, it's been very similar to me for me as well. Like I use my social media accounts as pretty much as a tool for the business end to promote some of the other things I'm doing, but also just to connect with people. Most of the people I've actually had on the podcast, I've literally connected with through social media. I haven't. I've gotten some referrals. Some people have emailed me or DM'd me because of episodes they've seen and they've had like clients that they want to hop on. But for the most part, I'd say 90% of my episodes have been just me reaching out or seeing someone or connecting with somebody, and then them coming on the platform and being able to like really make a genuine connection. It's it's crazy because I would have never expected to use social media this way, When
Yeah.
years ago I used social media just as a like as my own thing. I would just throw random posts and random things, and it wasn't as intentional. Now I find that my social media use is intentional, and I think you said something important, which was just like you have to just be careful because the amount of time and energy
Yeah.
people drain into it, they make it so personal all the time that like you'll get affected by not getting a lot of likes or not getting a lot of
Yeah.
views. I know right now I'm doing a ton of reels and stuff, and I'll
Yeah.
check the insights to be like, oh, how many, whatever. It's but now I'm like, I gotta stop because I'll compare like this one did so much better than this one, and I'll go back and forth, and it's not conducive to anything. My big tip is for anyone listening is just to blame the algorithm. Like I always blame the algorithm. Like it's the algorithm. They just didn't show it to enough people. I don't blame myself because sometimes you can get to that place where you're like, oh, my content just isn't good enough. People don't care. People aren't liking it, and all those things.
I know, I get it too. Like sometimes like you not try to get personal. You're like, oh my god, I feel this post is great, and I'm thinking I'm gonna get like this certain amount, but then it's under deliver, and that's sometimes something. But it's at the end of the day, whatever you are posting out, it has to just make sure like you're loving it at the end of the day,
Mm.
even though sure, but also within content, you can always constantly repost that. But it's also you have to keep in mind time, what day, what people are
Mm-hmm.
doing, that matters. And then I also notice like when you are posting something, you hashtag, and then sometimes I play around with like people love stories and captions. So sometimes it's like for example, should I do a video? But but then also I do see like people putting long blurb and like but it's just like but the good thing about social media is that you continue to practice, right?
Yeah.
Especially and you find what works with you and then what is your audience. For me, I always change it up to see what people are doing. And for me, I don't mind risking it. It's all about keep putting yourself out there, being creative, being outside the box, and try to not like being in the norm and for me like I think a couple of years ago when I was trying to figure out my identity and like it did got competitive where I want people to get notice me, but then I got too much in my head where like it's I'm recognizing my content seems to be similar to other influencers.
Mm.
I'm not calling myself influencer, but like blogger. So it's hard to be yourself and be different, but also noticing other people are growing. So just remember stay in your lane and just remember again going maybe getting how I said always remind your purpose. What is that you're trying to put out there? For me, my content is always tend to be positive and just embracing that whatever that you're doing. And for me, I use social media as looking at other people's journey, seeing their journey and success. Like for me, I keep tabs on Jahmil too when seeing your podcast too. So for me, I actually thought about doing podcasts too, but just have never really had the opportunity of being on interview and it's interesting. It's like that's a new norm now too of like a new way to interview and like I think you're on the right track there. So keep doing your craft, and yeah. And you too. You always post really positive and like truthful and like these are resources and like resources and tools that we need right now. And what we're doing right now is good like having minimal conversation and then see what if if, if this works.
Yeah, it is. And thank you. I think like one of the things I've really tried to do, especially recently, because so many of like a lot of the podcast stuff has been a journey. I've been doing podcasting for almost over 2 years now. So I in the beginning I wasn't really posting it. I wasn't sharing it as much and showing people what I was doing. I think it was just more fear. You're like learning something. You're afraid of like everyone judging it. So then I just didn't, and now I'm more comfortable just being like, this is the podcast. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm working on. Every week, you're going to get a post about the podcast. You're going to get a new update. You're going to see a video. You're going to see some content. I started to really hone in on what my style was, what I'm comfortable with. I think that's another piece. Like early on, I tried to do a lot of pictures and things, and I've never modeled. I've never done that before. So it's just outside of my wheelhouse. It's not something I've done. It's not something I planned on doing. So a lot of my content just isn't that, and that's some people have entire pages built off of that, which is cool because that's what they do well at. For me, it's
Yeah.
like sitting in front of the microphone is like the thing that I've enjoyed the most, and it's the content I enjoy editing. It's the content I enjoy posting about. So it's like it just became like this natural. Like eventually, I got to a place where I was like, "This is what I want to do. I want to sit in front of the mic. I can record this. I can make a reel. I can post that and let people see it and listen and give me their thoughts or take something away from it if it's positive for them. And they're just beliefs that I have that I can share really quickly. And if they want to hear something longer, they can hear the podcast episode. Like they can go check it out and see what it's all about. And I think that's what social media has. That's the positive side of social media, being able to really connect with people and being able to make a meaningful difference with just your authentic connection.
Yeah.
But there is a negative side, and
Yeah.
I think that also has to be talked about because oftentimes, especially like people like us that are super positive on social media, we don't really highlight any of the negatives that social media could have, and all those other things that comes with having a presence. Even as you're growing a platform, there's a ton of pitfalls. What have been some things that you've noticed or things you've seen, especially regarding mental health, because social media plays a heavy role in today's society?
Well, for me, I admit, I've been working on my mental health. I didn't realize that. It's actually, I think it's because now we're starting to think about it, and like we're really thinking. Like for me, it really takes a lot of self-reflection, realizing that wow, there's a lot of things that make me feel insecure because of mental health, and it's also the way they're upbringing. So that's a lot, especially with like with the pandemic in the beginning of COVID. Especially there's a lot of negativity regarding to um, hate crimes and Asian hate crime. That's always something for me. I always use my platform when it's relevant, even like post out, even when I'm positive. I'm trying to still find like positive way to let people know what's going on too.
Mm.
Yeah, that's negative, but it's also at the end of the day, I am. It's how I take that feedback and control it too. Yeah, sometimes that it does bother me, but then at the end of the day, I'm not like I shouldn't take it personal. The good thing about mental health is really good ways to really take a deep breath, is step away sometimes. And you also notice too that social media or Instagram or Facebook, they have history. They have ways to track of what you looking to. So let's say you're looking at news one day and all you see are news too. So it's also good to clear your cache too, because if you all of a sudden you see all this negative, you're gonna keep seeing that too. So that's why so always refresh your history and catch, or else you're gonna continue seeing negative thing, or take a break. There was a time where I was really in my space where I actually challenged myself, and I stepped away from media. Like I did a 1 week rule, not to do anything, and like just basically take a breather because it was too toxic. And sometimes you need that. And I'm like, and checking yourself too. It's really important.
Yeah, I think those are really important points. The stepping away, right? Taking some time for yourself to just recuperate. There was I know in January there was a lot of content creators that just didn't post or didn't do any content. They took the entire month of January off to focus on themselves. Even because January is typically like a month where a lot of people will launch things. They'll start things. They'll have a whole bunch of stuff happen. So there was a ton of content creators that just didn't do anything, which I thought was really cool because they were focused on mental health. And I think the other piece is like the way I think about it, it's all everything you receive on social media. It's all based off the algorithm. It's based off of what you're searching. It's more of what you'll see. So it's like you do have to clear that history. You do have to refresh that history. You have to change what you're looking for, because social media can be a very positive place if you're searching for positive things. The app will give you what you're looking for. One thing that, at least for me, that really worked, I started looking up like a lot of motivational quotes, following pages with motivational quotes and sharing those. And now a lot of that is what I get recommended. So when I go on social media, it's a lot less negative. It's more like these are some really positive things. And that's made a huge difference on what I see in my relationship with social media. Because before, like finding news, I don't follow any news on social media because it comes up and you'll be having a great day, and then you'll get like a terrible article. You're like, why did I have to stumble upon this crazy thing that happened at a school? Or why did I have to stumble upon this parent that just dealt with whatever scenario? So that's another important piece. It's like, if you're going to, social media will give you whatever you're seeking, and it just continues to reaffirm negatives, and it will reaffirm positives too.
Mm-hmm. And then some of the stories that like ever relate to you, like share it and talk about it. Especially for me, I think being mental health really, I feel like I'm doing a lot better is by being able to open myself and be willing to be vulnerable and telling people what's going on, and then having that conversation too. And then that's most important too, because sometimes you're always in your head, but it's also good to let people know, especially people around you. And who knows, there's also people who follow you too. I'm pretty sure they don't want to see like they also want to know you too. So once in a while I like to share things about myself and say, right, social media is such a way where like it's really deceiving. It's actually it sometimes if you look at someone's profile, it looks like maybe that particular person has a perfect life. Social media has that. But sometimes, you have to take a step and say, sometimes it's good to tell people what's going on. You kind of being real too. And then you never know. That's another way for you to continue to build your brand. It's on talking to yourself, and then they want to find out more. And then for me, that's how I wanted to too. That's why how I said I started as a fashion blog, but I actually incorporated more of like my life into it, like so not a
Yeah, no, that was just such a solid point.
I lost
Train of thought.
Yeah.
No, that was a solid point. So much of it is being authentic, right? Like putting yourself out there. I think that helps build a brand so much, because it's easy to put on a positive image, and it's easy to try to pretend that everything in the world is good, that everything around you is good. But when you're struggling, you oftentimes can connect with people even more, just because they might be struggling too. It is like it's part of the reason why a lot of some of the content I'm making now, especially with some of the podcast clips, they're like real things that I'm like talking through or struggling with, or ideas or concepts that I think need to be like talked about more. Things that say things like insecurities, and things like like feeling like you have to listen to everyone that's older than you, everyone that's above you, everyone that's done it before. Like I like to talk about that, because sometimes I feel like I have to. So I'm like, well, you don't really need to, but you have to say that sometimes for people to relate.
Yeah. And I think it's really good to have different types of people, different age groups. I have friends that are like younger than me, like in the early 20s, and I have friends in their 30s, and like I both to my parents, so the dialogue is different. But it's good to like have that separate conversation. It also helps you improve your the way you're thinking too, to expand. And again, at the end of the day, so it's how you make connections. So.
Yeah, and that's what life's about. It's like you can never pretend to know it all. I was listening to like a comedian talk about like saying how like when they were or there was it was this guy who he competes in Survivor. He's like on the TV show. He won one of the seasons. His name's Tyson. So Tyson, he has a podcast that he's been on, and he talks about how when he was 25, he thought he knew everything about the world. And then he turned 30 and thought he knew everything about the world and was like, when I was 25, I knew nothing. And now he's in his 40s and he's like, I know everything about the world. But he knows he doesn't. He's like, every time I get older, I think I know more. I think I know everything until I realize I don't, as I get older and older. And it is true, right? It's like, yeah, you're never gonna know, even if you feel enlightened. You're still gonna need other people around you or people who have done this or had experiences here and there to kind of give you some guidance. Whether or not you take that guidance is up to you, but you do have to at least listen because there's value there.
Yeah. And then also listen and being able to have a conversation. That's also too. Like, sure, you can have a conversation for a person, but is that person willing to have that conversation? That's another thing. I'm just not gonna waste my time having conversation, talking. Not to say I'm not being rude. Like, I'm not trying to talk to a wall, but we're gonna have dialogue. It has to be like, you're reciprocating what I'm trying to say, to not just like ignoring, especially if someone like I'm venting out to, and then they ask for my advice, but then like I go and provide my advice, but then they don't at the end like listen or agree, then it's just like, well, what I'm here for, that kind of thing. So so having conversation and then finding people who are willing to do that too, because not a lot of people have that same mentality too.
Yeah, a lot of people are stubborn, and a lot of people are very closed off.
And breaking that ego too, and I think like I think I learned I'm very ego. I have a big ego, but break that down too, because me too. I thought I'm like I know it all too, and like my parents say it too. So I'm like realizing I don't really know it all. I don't know everything. So being able to admit that and like willing to work that too, and then pride it also gets a lot too. Being able to unlearn that.
Yeah, there's a certain comfort you have to learn or have with being wrong, and I think being wrong is fine. I think even what you said about social media earlier, like experimenting and trying things and not knowing if it's gonna work, but just still doing it, like that's what it's about. Like you don't have to be amazing at social media to post something. You don't have to be posting the perfect post to make everyone like see it. Like not everyone's gonna see it. Not everything's gonna blow up. And then sometimes things might. I remember I had a post that like I had no clue it was gonna be so successful. And it was like 3,000 people saw it in the first 2 hours. I was like, how in the world did that happen? Because I'd never have posts that 3,000 people see in 2 hours. But you don't know. And then I had another one that was like no one saw for like the first 2 days. I was like, oh gosh, everything went really, really back to reality here. So you don't know. So trying and being willing to fail and being willing to put yourself out there and accepting that it does show maturity, because when you have an ego, like I'm definitely someone who has an ego. I think I have a strong belief in myself. I'll say that. So because I believe in myself, I immediately think I will be right, even if I'm not. I've had to learn that it's okay to not be right.
Yeah, and then that's good. That's all. It's kind of on the subject how I want to ask out of like self-awareness is so important, and being able to recognize that's great. And for me, I'm not to say like I'm 30 right now too, and like I'm just starting to figure out who I am and being self-aware and all that too. So that's really important.
What do you think helps someone that's trying to figure out, or how does someone become more self-aware? How did you become more self-aware?
To be honest, it's from having conversations with my family and my friends, and then I also I'm not when I was younger I was not a fan of reading books, but I actually started to I think I started from the pandemic. Ever since then, me and my girlfriend started like a book club where like once a month we read books, and a couple of the books that we read were like self-help, like poems that speak from the heart and talks about that. that kind of helped me become self-aware. But for me, I think it's also, I took some time to spend alone time with myself, of really doing a lot of self check-in, of like really, what is that I am not happy with myself? What is that I'm feeling that I'm not being fulfilled in my life? And also, for me, I really had like a really strong relationship or close with my parents, but because I'm a lot older and maybe with the pandemic, it kind of reeled me in a little closer of like, I'm starting to have more conversation with my parents and like, and then kind of break that generation curse of the conversation that we don't really talk about, but really talk about it, because I realized that my parents also have the same question too. It's just also being able to figure out how to communicate. Communication is also important too. So because of that, spending time with my family, having conversations, reading self-help books, and being able to, and then time. I know sometimes time is very can be very impatient, but I think it's really cliche. Like, you have to give yourself time to, even like when you're like when you're going through whatever you're going through and you feel like there's no way out. That I think that's the time where you really need to take a dive in and really look into yourself. Like, is this something where I'm reacting because I control, or is it really like that's where I'm starting to realize that.
Mm. Nah, that's so solid, because there is so much to becoming more self-aware. There's I
There's a
think,
lot of layers of what
yeah,
that
there's
means.
so many layers, because
Yeah.
I don't think I'm definitely like, I was not this way
Mm-hmm.
6 years ago. Like, there's just no way. Like, I can't even imagine 25-year-old me being
Mm-hmm.
in the same mindset I have now. Like, it just
Yeah.
wasn't the case. I didn't have the experience. I just didn't have the willingness, I guess. So I think sometimes it starts with just being willing to recognize your faults, being willing to
Yeah.
recognize that you're not perfect, and
Mm-hmm.
then the desire to change. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because unless you're willing to, it doesn't even matter. Like, you
Yeah.
just never will. But when you
Yeah.
are willing to, you can really make some significant differences, at least in your
Yeah.
life, in the quality
And
of person you are.
it's really important to also forgive yourself too. Like, we always, yeah, it's very cliche. Like, you really learn from your mistakes too, but how are you gonna pivot from that point? Like, are you gonna deal with it, or are you gonna grow? Really, really can do that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that it is. It's just an interesting place. Like, it's an interesting point, because I don't necessarily think that when people are scrolling on social media and they see who you are, that they think about the journey that it takes to get to that place. I think they just see an account and they see like, oh, these are some cool updates, but they don't see like the amount of work and effort and energy you had to put into yourself before you could even start a brand or start a company, start a business, start a like, you couldn't do all that until you really started to reflect internally.
And it's good to slow down too. Like, yeah, and then I know there's so many different types, so many outlets out there. Like, there's Instagram, Facebook. There's a time where I just focused on one area, and then and from once I felt like I'm steady, I like move on to that. I know there's like, now people are going to TikTok, so that's something
Mm-hmm.
and that's new media, right? But I'm not there yet. But there's always another thing, but it's also good to slow down and like smell the roses and like really reel it in, and yeah, because you tend to like lose track of what you're doing. And I
Yeah,
keep saying that. Don't lose track. Continue to find your purpose. If not, you can always rediscover your purpose too.
That's a gem right there, because you can think that life changes as you change. The things that matter change as you change, and they might look different than they looked 5 years ago, and that's normal, and that's fine. I think a lot of times we get caught up in this mindset that we have to continue along this one path because that's the path we studied in school. That's the path
Yeah.
we've dedicated time towards. In reality, you don't have to go down the one path that you started. There are so many other options available to you, and walking back is still an option. Starting over is an option.
Yeah, media portray, like, I know, like, growing, I think I feel like media itself sets how, like, the expectation of where life should be. But I think now with everything, I don't know, maybe because, like, we're like millennials and, like, we're kind of like, we'll you know, there's no one direct, there's so many entities and stuff like that. So I don't know, society and media kind of portrays that, and, like, you know, it's always like it does get kind of, that's a negative side too of, you know, that too of, like, the media shows you one way, but also comparing yourself of, like, you know, wait, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, but this is what the media portraying, and being able to unlearn that and break that way, and, like, also picking back on, like, that's when it comes to being self-aware and having that mental health helps you guide that through.
Yeah, there's
everything.
it's all connected. It's all connected, and there's just there's so many pieces of the lived experience, I think, that we have to be aware of when we're going through our day, because as much as we might think that we're the only people experiencing or going through this pain or whatever, there are so many communities of people going through the same thing you're going through. They might not have the exact same problem, but they're having problems that are very adjacent. And there's so much to that I've been made aware of as I've gone down different paths, started to write books. Like becoming an author, I learned so many issues that authors have, new authors have, like authors on their second book, authors in their third book. Like there's so many things that are very specific to a certain experience that I'm starting to become more and more aware of. Podcasters and different issues that they have, and all of the different plights that there are, these pitfalls, and being a creator in general, seeing how people respond to your content and learning how to separate your own fulfillment from the numbers, and whether or not there is a lot of people seeing it, or being number obsessed, because it's easy to start getting competitive or getting down by not having the level of success that you hope for or that you see other people having. Like I've looked at reviews and been like, that person has this many reviews, I don't have that many reviews. And I'm like, why am I comparing who has more reviews? Like, why does that matter when I know we have great content? So there's all those different things that you start to balance, and that you have to learn to level. And a lot of that comes from being able to reflect on yourself and know what matters to you, know what's important, what's a core value for you, and then be happy with the direction you're choosing and taking, and changing course if it's not making you happy anymore.
Yeah, and then if you're not happy, so you do something different. That's it.
So where can people connect with you on social media? Where can they listen to the blog, see the blog? Where can they connect with you?
So right now I am in the middle of reconstructing my blog site right now. So, but you can go to fashiontherapy.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, fashion therapy, but with a hyphen in the fashion underscore therapy on Instagram. I am also on TikTok, but again, I'm exploring. I'm also on Facebook as well too. So if you guys have any questions, you can DM me or email me.
Awesome. And all the links will be in the notes, so you just gotta open that up if you really don't know how to spell.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to leave us with was the final question, and it's how can you, what do you think inspires you to continue to do what you're doing every single day?
Inspire me. That's really good. I think it's inspired. I think a part of my creativity came from like from my grandfather, who recently passed away, and he's always been like a creative. Like he's a poet, he's an author himself too. So he always encouraged me to be really expressive with clothing, fashion. So that's where I get my information, my inspiration, but also my family and like friends and also what really drives me is that when someone really write a comment or something that I post and it made them smile, and it kind of makes me smile and kind of question myself like, wow, whatever I'm doing is right too. And I had a friend the other day too where like, and she was like, I was helping her with picking out an outfit and stuff like that. And I really look into like all the selection I gave her, and I like, like when I pick out things, I look on like how you feel and this and like, you're right. And then but I told them like, that's where my inspiration comes in too. And then I'm a natural and I like to help people. That's where my inspiration is. Always be kind and then being able to express myself and so.
No, that's awesome. I think there's so much that's cool, like about being able to point towards all of these things that help inspire you, having a connection with your grandfather, having family, friends that matter, even just positive comments. Those things really make a difference too. At least from what I've noted, like that stuff really hits. Like whenever someone shares something I post, I'm like, wow, this must have really connected with them for them to share it or for them to actually like it or care about it. So I always think about that too. Thank you for coming on the episode. This has been dope. For the listeners, you know what to do. Like this video, subscribe, do all the good things. Peace out.
Scribble notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me. With or without a degree, don't question my intensity. Bravery, similar to agencies that want to see you fall. So just pray for me. Einstein with my